So, Dallas, design for assisted living lifestyles at scale, or delivery of assisted living lifestyles at scale, as some would have it. The key to this event is the at-scale bit. So these are the commitments from each of the 4 Dallas communities to engage with end users. The whole point of Dallas being to test the redesign of assisted living services to large-scale populations rather than the small trials. So the at-scale bit, to me anyway, and certainly the way we've approached it in Year Zero, the project that I'm involved with, is that engaging with consumers is the at-scale bit. But we can't engage with consumers without understanding consumers. And I might as well start off by being controversial, but having come from outside the healthcare system, I would say the healthcare system doesn't know that much about consumers. Because largely it doesn't think about consumers, it doesn't think about citizens. It primarily thinks of its customers as patients. But lots of other people do know about consumers. And in the digital space that the Dallas projects are operating, there are the digital consumer environment is full of rich data, much of it unexplained or unexplored within the healthcare sector. Some of it brings insight, some of it's just plain odd, and some of it, hopefully throughout the day, I think will challenge some of the conceptions that we may have of what consumers do, why they do it, how they behave. So I'm just going to start with a couple of examples. We've got people later in the day who will be approaching this consumer description of the consumer or description of consumer behaviour from design perspectives, from sociology perspectives, from a marketing perspective. I just wanted to start from the background that I have, which is from a media and telecoms perspective. So there's a wealth of data from the media and telecoms companies about how consumers behave. Some of it's about groups of users. So this is interesting. So Oliver and Olbaum, great consultancy in the media sector. Interesting that we tend to think of the different customers of Sky and Virgin and say Freeview as the 3 primary television groups as, well, they're just, they're customers of television services. But the interesting thing is if you then look at them according to the other things, other technologies that they have in their houses, they're actually quite distinct groups. And say Sky consumers are particularly are high users of a whole range of other technologies. So these different businesses base their strategies on the insights that they can gain from the data about their consumers. Similarly, you've got a rich source, often contradictory I have to say, but rich sources of data around populations and the technologies that they have. So what are the competing primary television set technologies? What are the competing suppliers for residential broadband? The other devices in the house. And sometimes you get some quite interesting results. So this was, again, Oliver and Olbaum's study. This was done in 2011 of tablet and e-reader consumption. So at 12 and 16%. And projected, and in fact this has come true, to double. So one of the things that I really like about this one is often in the obsession with tablets and the interest in tablets, and some very interesting data that I'm going to share with you later on, the prevalence of e-readers as a device and the groups of people that use e-readers, primarily Kindles, but also news. These are an almost unspoken technology that lots and lots of people have, and lots of the people who have them are in the demographics that people in the healthcare sector might be interested in. So I think there's lots of insight that we can gain, and later on I'm going to do a presentation that's going to rely on you guys. So I'm hoping that everybody has downloaded the Dallas app. If you haven't downloaded the Dallas app, please download the Dallas app now. And what I'm going to try and do later on is compare what you think the answers are to what the data reveals. I'm hoping that nobody scores higher than half the answers right. So far I've only had one person who's got better than chance. So I try to be particularly, try and produce some data that will challenge your conceptions. I just want to leave you with one slide before we get on with the day. The other thing that I think is interesting about the data that one can acquire from the media and telecoms companies is the way that it looks at trends. And I think this is particularly interesting for the healthcare sector, because I think the shift to services delivered digitally or services delivered personally feels like a very, very long haul. And there's always that question of when does this journey start? And the interesting thing is, looking, I think, Mark Oliver treats a lot of the industries that he deals with as to whether the impact of digital has been to invert that particular industry, i.e. for it to go into decline rather than growing. And the interesting thing about this slide to me is this is the revenue of direct mail and newspaper classifieds actually. So you're probably all aware that the newspaper industry, particularly the local newspaper industry, is in very, very dire straits. Google's founded here, and this is the increase in internet search advertising. So for a long time, this industry still seemed to be growing, while the thing that was going to kill it was also growing. So the point at which everybody started to notice this in newspapers, this shift that consumers were making to finding material, particularly classified and advertising material through the internet, was in the mid-2000s. But the shift had already started before then. So I just want to leave you with that slide to think about where we are on this journey. Is this a journey that's really started, or have our consumers, unbeknownst to us, already started doing the behaviours that will shape the future?